Keep it pyro.
Alright, it's PyroRadio.com. The Flip Life Radio show.
I hadn't heard that one either. That one was dope.
That's my favourite one. We got sent 3 songs today. I've been bumping that one today.
I was talking over most of it. You're going to have to send that to me, fam.
Yeah, I got you. Special guest in the building, April Showers. Is that right?
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming.
You've caused bare dramas today.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about you coming here a while ago, before, and I've followed your music and what you've been doing. And
likewise,
going on for a good while. But now you've launched a new movement or musical group.
Absolutely. So myself and Antonio B have been like kind of heads down in the studio for the past couple of years, and we've been working on an EP that is on the way to coming out shortly, very soon in the next month. But we've also been working on a catalogue of music that we want to sell to other artists as well, and sell into independent record labels.
For other artists to sing and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Like it ranges from neo soul to reggae to rock to country music. The catalogue's deep. So yeah.
But you've launched. We'll get more into what you're doing as well before we finish. But you've launched the first song.
Yeah.
I said it earlier and I couldn't pronounce it properly.
You're trying to say toxicity?
It's funny, it is a very hard, try saying it when you're drunk as well. Toxicity.
I don't drink, so.
I know you don't drink.
I still say it like a drunk anyway. Toxicity.
Toxicity.
Yeah, what you two said.
So without going into too much detail of what a toxic relationship is, what was the thought behind the song and what you wanted to get across? And we're going to play it and you can kind of introduce it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I guess the idea for the song came from just kind of like going back into my past and maybe when I was a bit younger and looking at relationships that I'd had with men and where I'd manifested and I had voluntarily consciously manifested myself into a toxic relationship, because I never believed that a toxic relationship comes from just one side. There's a part of giving and taking in that, and when I say that, let me break it down. So for example, like I did a lot of research and they were saying that people like narcissists and people that display certain behaviors like that, they project certain things that people that are maybe vulnerable or not so confident in themselves kind of give or feed into their behavior. So for example, a narcissist might say to you in an argument, you're in a relationship, he might say to you, well, you know, you're doing this and I know you're trying to mess with my head and you're not, and the other person on the other side will be like, no, I'm not trying to do that, and da-da. So those are the kind of behaviors that the narcissist feeds off of, for example. So by doing that and by playing into that, you kind of strengthen the narcissist's personality. Whereas if a narcissist was coming to you and saying like, oh, you're trying to do this and you're trying to do that and you're trying to mess with my head, and I'm sorry that you think that.
You mean like when you say trying to do this, like accusing you of?
Yeah, like accusing you of certain things or trying to.
You mean like trying to start an argument by
get
you emotional by accusing you of stuff that you know you're innocent of?
Absolutely, because a narcissist wants to feed off of your
negative emotion.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Your negative emotion, because
so just draw them out of you.
Absolutely. They would draw the devil out of you. So if you give in to that and you plead and you surrender by saying, I did not do this, I am not that person, I please, I did not, you're feeding their ego even more, and that encourages the behaviour and that encourages the addiction and the to and fro.
These are jewels right here.
She's hit a nail on the head for me, like personally, like in my most recent relationship, that I really relate to exactly what you just said to me. Yeah. That is mad.
That's a real good advice. Just ignore them.
Just absolutely. And you know what as well, it's just I think it's about ignoring them, but also it's about like understanding that a narcissist is born from a lot of things that happen to them in their childhood. For example, like the parents might have not been there for them, might have not given them time, but whenever they played up or said like, I need time, I need you, or I'm going to be naughty because I need your attention, the parents will like spoil them with money and teach them not to be like emotionally articulate or not to be close and all of that kind of stuff. So by you kind of being in a relationship with a narcissist and you saying, but okay, I understand that you think I'm a BITC. I understand that you think I'm but we're just going to leave it there. Like, there's certain things that you can do to enable yourself to have the power to move away. So the song kind of came about from that, and just exploring, like, a lot of the songs that me and Antonio B, big up, hey, a lot of the songs that we did was just kind of about April and the Aprilites movement is about exploring male and females' insecurities and vulnerabilities, and being very, very real and very honest in the lyrics and the music, because a lot of songwriters teach you that you have to champion yourself, you have to be the hero in every song, and so we wanted to work against the grain and do something different. So
you're the victim in that song?
I wouldn't say I was the victim, because I think that I was the victim at a point, but the song kind of shows a certain strength and a certain overpower. Yeah, exactly. Like, who won in the end? Like, that kind of thing.
So did you pick Ty because he's got like an abusive character?
So interesting that you should bring that up about Ty. It's so
I know, like, because Ty's such a nice guy. I can't imagine like you picking him to be like
the mean guy.
Who used to beat up Tina Turner? Ike. Yeah, like you made him the Ike of your video.
I didn't. Do you know what? It was one of those.
Or the Chris Brown. We've got to come to this in day and age.
Ty is definitely a really nice guy, and the beauty of it is that I didn't know Ty in and out in terms of like the depths of his personality before we discussed him doing the video. But that was for me because I knew that I couldn't be intimate in a video and do all of those scenes with somebody that I knew very closely. It needed to be somebody that was fairly distant. When Ty came to me after a lot of the shoots, sorry Ty, if you're listening, I hope you don't mind me talking about this, but when Ty was speaking out and, you know, the set designers, people were all in the room, and Ty said, you know, it was really hard for him to get into character and play that role because that's not how he naturally is, and I sense that 100%. That's not how he is, but damn, can he act? Damn, he had me all up against the wall, like, oh my god.
Hey Ty, you're a much better scumbag than you realise. We just wanted to tell you that from the FlipLifeRadio show.
Alright, big up Ty.
Keep it pyro.
Cool. Let's get straight back into it. Toxic relationship. When
we was on a little break when you was playing your song, you was talking about how you feel like a lot of people come into this from like childhood problems, and then bring it into their adult relationships. Well, interestingly enough, when
so before coming on the show, I spoke to a group of females and a group of males. In addition to that, I also did a lot of research via YouTube videos and things like that, and there seems to be a correlation between, like, a lot of the females that I'd mentioned toxic relationships to automatically assumed that I was referring to emotional or physical abuse, which is really interesting. Now, on top of that, they all had similar experiences where they were younger females and they had dated older men. So kind of alarm bells started ringing to me here. So I'm saying, like, obviously, like, as a younger female, there's a need now to be guided or have some kind of authority in dating an older male or somebody that's quite, you know, like, dominant in the relationship. And then from the male's perspective, there's some need where, and I'm not saying that all kind of age distance relationships are based on this, but it sounded like the males that they were dating needed to have some kind of control over the female in terms of, like, being able to guide her, being able to create a certain level of order in her life.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. I find like older guys that are attracted to young things are weirdos.
I love the way you said young things.
and also they're really controlling. Like they're always trying to find out where the young things are.
Absolutely.
I'm like, yo, she's a young thing. She's where young things are.
Exactly.
Go.
Is being free, living her life, doing her thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And strangely enough, another correlation was that all of the males that had these relationships with the younger females seemed to have motherhood issues. Now, when I say motherhood issues, I mean, like, this is like a really strong correlation. So they had absent fathers or fathers that didn't invest much emotionally into their sons, and the mothers were angry at the sons for being a likeness of the male that had left their lives, right? So so the woman, the mum, loves her son, but is constantly angry. She's angry that she's been left alone. She's angry that she has to deal. She's angry that all the responsibility is on her. And subconsciously, whether she means it or not, she's taken it out on her son, and she's making her son step up to a role that he's not ready for. So she's treating him like an equal in the household. She's treating him like a man instead of like a child. And she's putting certain pressures on him emotionally. And so that man grows up to be, and this is not in all cases, this is just what I've seen and who I've spoken to, the man grows up to be quite angry and quite frustrated. And also he grows up with a love for women that is actually, when you dig down deep, is a kind of despise for women. It's a kind of hate for women, because he can't really respect women because he's never had a relationship or a bond with a woman that he really loves. And so he then goes out and walks around and seeks a woman that is younger than him, that he can influence, that he can reciprocate the relationship that he's had with his mum. But this time, guess what? He's the abuser. And he's the man who, and I'm not saying that this is the same in all situations, because we can talk about the woman's side of things now, and the women that I've spoken to, and I'm not going to mention any names, but like I can tell you that they all have issues with their fathers. I can definitely tell you that. So it's a like for like thing. Like, no one's to blame, but everyone is to blame for not taking time in life to work on yourself, work on your spirit, work on your mental attitude, and take time before diving into relationship after relationship after relationship.
This is a point I wanted to get to that I've been thinking about today, and I was just thinking, I was saying myself, like, I've had like 3 long-term relationships, and I was looking at it today, I was thinking they've all been toxic in some way or at some time from both sides. And looking at, and then we asked the question of, is toxic the same as abuse? And we had this thread going through today, and a lot of people said no. Some people said yes, and I kind of ended up agreeing with them in a sense, because if I'm in a relationship where I'm not providing something for someone that they feel like they need, and I'm just in a different space, I'm not intentionally trying to be abusive to them.
Yeah, I get that.
But I'm removed. Or in a situation I was just quite depressed and going, like, I just come out of another relationship. I'm not ready to be in a relationship at this time. So what needed to happen is for me to just say, I can't be in a relationship at the moment.
Absolutely.
And it's making that decision and realizing that. I think that's kind of what you've just touched on.
That is absolutely key, because like what you just said as well, like you've gone from relationship to relationship, and we've all been, well, most of us have been there, not you haven't been
No.
but like a lot of us have been there, where we've gone from relationship to relationship. We haven't taken time to work on ourselves, but at the same time, you know, that is your responsibility. And as an adult, we have to take accountability. Like, I'm only just now taking accountability for those things, in terms of like, so my child, for example, like I could say to him, well, you know what, I could have given you healthy food while you were growing up, I could have helped you with your homework, but guess what, I just wasn't in that space, I wasn't ready. so in a sense, like, we have to be ready, we have to have to step back, and because we have to love ourselves first and foremost. And I know it's a cliche, but we really do, because until you understand 100% unconditional love for yourself, you don't have the ability to love another. You might think you can, but you can't really.
So like, what percentage of the population do you think has the ability to love another? Like 5%, 10%?
Oh, 100%.
But who's ready?
Who really loves themselves though? I don't know no one that loves, not even my own family.
Yeah.
And who loves themselves like 100%?
Yeah.
Nobody, like.
Do you think that if a relationship is toxic, does that mean that there's no hope for it? It's unfixable?
No, I don't think that if a relationship's toxic, it's unfixable. There are I think my opinion is that it depends on the level of toxicity. So say, for example, it is about substance abuse and codependency. You need to walk away, because that's about safeguarding yourself and safeguarding the person that you're in a relationship with. As a matter of an emergency in that time. Absolutely. Yeah. And the same with like emotional abuse, because, you know, our emotions, like there's a thin line between love and hate. It's real out here. So you could actually like literally go for months and months and months with one person telling you a certain thing about yourself and you're fine, but the next day, lights off, everything's gone, spirit gone, dead, gone. So I just think that back to the question, I'm saying, is it fixable? Is it fixable? I think that it is fixable if it's like a mild level of toxicity. So say, for example, like say I'm a broken woman. I'm a broken woman because certain things might have happened to me in my childhood or in my adult life. But if I meet a man who is 100% happy and okay with himself, and he's happy to spend time working on me, and I'm not violent, and I'm not vindictive, and I'm not manipulative, but I just have issues, we can work it out. And if he has issues as well, absolutely, but on the same kind of level, I think that's key as well. And having an understanding of
what other people may have been through or are going through is key as well.
What do you lot think about, like, I don't know, like I was saying, I've been single for a long time. In that time, I've seen bare couples split up for like stupid reasons. Honestly, I feel like people don't even really try a lot these days. Like, so they'll claim it was toxic, but it wasn't that toxic. They was arguing over like remote controls and cinema. You're like, right, they could have stayed together.
That's your perspective as an outsider, though.
No, that's true, because you never know what happens behind closed doors. But I do feel like
I do agree with that, though.
A lot of couples could have worked on it.
People have. I think because we live in an age where it's like live fast, die young. So people are like, well, actually, I don't really have the time to invest in somebody else's emotions. I don't have the time to comfort this person. I don't have the time. I think that's a big contribution as to why we have like a lot of broken relationships and relationships that don't last long, because we don't have that ability to work it out. We don't have that reason. Actually, funny enough, I was watching a TED Talks. I think it was called The Weird Science of Love. And in that TED Talks, they talked about how, funny enough, you would think that people who never argue and never have issues and never like are feisty with each other, they're the people whose relationships don't last very long. But actually, it turned out when they surveyed all of these people, the people who were the most feisty, argued the most and did all of this stuff and were passionate, had the longest lasting relationships, like 5, 10, 15 years. Because actually what you're showing is that you care. You care enough to work at it, and you care enough to try. Yeah,
as long as those arguments, you listen to each other in those arguments or after them.
That's
and
true.
Then
that's true.
Communicate. I think communication is key, man.
Yeah. I think nowadays as well, it's really hard to communicate because they don't teach us that in school. That's not like, and our parents can't teach it to us because our parents couldn't communicate, because if they would, guess what? They'd still be together. So, you know, it's a hard thing to learn. It's wisdom, innit? It's experience and wisdom to communicate. I
think so. Because we had sex education, we didn't really have relationship education.
Absolutely, and it's so deep like that. To be honest, like the love lessons and the relationship building should come first before sex, but sex is just thrown in your face. Even when you're growing up, you're a young child, 1 minute you're playing FIFA, next minute, boom, on the iPad or something.
I probably don't play it, so I'm like, what happened? This is a boom. I'm like, oh shit, it's titties and
what I mean is, like, you could just be surfing online and all of a sudden sex is thrown in your face. And it's not the right kind of sex. It's not like spiritual connection, emotional connection sex. It's sex like.
I mean, like, they took the boys and girls and separated them in my school, and we learned that girls could squirt, but we never got talked to about consent. I'm like, yo, they really don't really understand.
That's interesting.
You know what I'm saying? It's
I've
weird.
been having a big conversation with that recently about consent.
But they don't really talk to us about anything we have to deal with in life. Just like the actual having sex. Which is like...
I think I saw quite a big thread on that whole consent thing as well. It was really interesting to hear people's viewpoints.
And there was someone, I can't remember the guy's name, who said he was part of a team that were going to schools and doing workshops on the issue, and he was saying that they are he was in the know and said they are introducing it into the curriculum, but it's not really being done properly or well enough.
Even the word consent, actually, I think I stumbled on a couple of like YouTube videos where they were talking about the relevance of the word consent. Because consent effectively means, do you submit to the man? So it's still geared towards the man's objective and the man's thing.
What do you mean? How does it mean that?
Well,
in a certain context.
I think they were trying to say that, like, most of the time when we see messaging about like, but is it consent? Did you give consent? Is this consensual sex? Well, most people assume that we're talking about like giving the man consent, which in turn like gives power to the man. So effectively, sex is still about the man's control and the man's authority.
That's interesting.
The man's consent to do.
But consent just as a concept, it's not even just about sex. But I suppose, like, you know, what I was reading about it recently and around that time was just consent is to do with, you know, giving someone consent to do something or to take part in something at one time.
True.
And that it's not ongoing, and it's not just to do with sex. Like I was talking earlier about people who go in each other's phones and invade each other's kind of space.
You're right,
and all this kind of stuff. Even like spatial awareness when you're like in the street. You know what I'm saying? Like people kind of coming too close to you, this kind of thing. You don't really...
Or slapping bums at house parties.
Most certainly.
Trust me.
Or dragging
I'm trying to learn. I'm still trying to learn.
Okay.
Yeah. But is it possible? There's another question I wanted to ask. Is it possible to have a healthy relationship with someone who does have a personality disorder, does have substance abuse issues?
I think, again, I think it depends on the intensity of those issues, and I think it depends on how strong mentally and emotionally you are. Because say, for example, you have like the personality of an empath, somebody who is constantly trying to fix people and comfort people and make people feel all right, then you're kind of like too much of a giver, which means that, you know, it's easy for you to break down under those pressures. But if you're kind of quite headstrong and quite like capable and quite stable in yourself, it's quite possible. I've got friends in relationships with people that they are quite broken people, and their partner is quite supportive and quite able to carry them. But it has to be somebody who is able to carry them, and again, it depends on the severity, because if it's like, you know, you need to be institutionalized every now and again because your mental health issues are so severe, or you need to take a certain amount of drugs, which means that you're not really existing on this level that we're all existing on, then
I think what I mean is it would have to be a situation of a person who's progressing through those situations and aware of them. And
it's crazy when I think about it, like, even when we started the show, I wasn't thinking about those type of relationships. But in the ends, I do know like a lot of relationships, or one of the couples is like a full alkie, or one of the couples has like a proper drug problem, like a hard drug problem, and the other one just lives their life normal and just, it's weird.
That's not really the one.
I think there's no textbook answer in it, because it's just quite open. It depends on the individual. It depends on the individual's couple, that like their needs and their requirements and how severe and how capable.
Yeah, there's a heroin addict couple in my ends. I see them together. Been together for like 10 years. Yeah, I wonder how toxic their relationship is.
It might be calm.
It might be fully calm.
It's toxic for everyone else or whoever.
I always noticed them. I'm like, right, you still together? Yeah. Out here just fiending.
Running down the street. 10-mile journey.
Alright, what can we do? What advice do we give to people about what kind of action we take on for ourselves to make sure we're not in these kind of situations?
I guess my own advice, like for example, if I was to talk to my 17-year-old self, I would probably say just make sure that you know yourself. Make sure that you know what you're capable of. Don't be afraid to have adventures. Don't be afraid to try different things, but make sure that you're mentally, spiritually, and physically ready for everything. And so when it comes to giving advice to different people, I don't think there's one textbook advice, but the only thing that I can encourage is people to just know themselves spiritually and be happy in themselves before they break off bits of their energy and bits of their spirit to different people. Just like make sure that you're fundamentally okay in life, and then you can start sharing your world with other people.
I completely agree with that, man.
Yeah. All right, so back to the music, because that was extra deep.
Hey.
Way too deep. So you've got this project that you've been working on for a couple years with
Antonio B.
Antonio B. Let's bring Antonio B on.
Hey.
Yeah. And the project is the name of the group is April and the Aprilites.
Yeah, April and the Aprilites.
So before that, was you releasing music under your just as a solo artist?
Yeah. Before I was releasing music as a solo artist as April Showers, I had a track out last year, like a house track. I've had like bits and bobs over the years. Antonio B is like historically worked with like a lot of people from like, you wouldn't believe it by looking at him, but he's actually quite a mature man. But you would never believe it because he looks so damn good. He's using that cocoa butter. So he and I kind of just like joined both of our kind of talents and experiences, and it's mad how we met actually, like because we were like good friends for many years. But then something unfortunate happened in my life, and I think that I kind of depended on your friendship, and I kind of fell on you, and that's where the music was born from.
Started. Yeah.
Wow.
She came in one day upset, and I basically just started playing the piano, and she started singing, and it just blew me away. I was like, she just let out this burst of emotion through the music.
That's when the magic comes, man.
Yeah. And nothing was planned. We didn't plan anything. It was just, it was just me playing and her doing everything. And
So it's just the two of you though. It's like a group that is the two of you.
Yeah.
So who are the Aprilites? Like one of you's got to split multiple personalities.
So this is the interesting part. So like Antonio movement is kind of the movement of this particular sound. But April and the Aprilites to me is a movement that I hope to gain a bigger following on. And this is like males and females who believe in being your absolute raw, honest self. And the reason I gave it the name Aprilites is because it's like quite biblical sounding, like the Israelites, the Aprilites. It was about people who wanted to just kind of like explore raw, honest emotion and stuff like that. So the people that follow me, they're the Aprilites. The people that live that lifestyle are the Aprilites. The people that believe in themselves.
So we're the Aprilites.
You're the Aprilites. Everybody's the Aprilites.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Before we was actually like recording, you was talking about like having a voice.
Yeah.
We was talking about how like there's like a resurgence of singers coming back to London, coming back to our cities. But you were like, it's because of April's voice that was bringing you. I thought that's what.
What I was saying is, I mean, April is a prime example. I was saying that with music, a lot of artists or a lot of singers tend to want to do a genre. They want to jump into some type of genre. They want to recreate something that they think is going to be popular.
Yeah.
As a producer and the type of music I like to do and why we work so well is to find the honesty within an artist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Then they're not trying to do something. They're just revealing who they are. Everybody's got something inside of them. They've got their own journey, you know, and to relate that through the music in a very honest way.
Like that piano session that you lot started with.
Started with the piano session, yeah. And through the tracks that you're hearing now, you know, they're all very honest.
Yeah.
You know, they're all very from the soul. They're not contrived written stuff. They're just very honest stuff.
It's hard when you say honest as well. It's like I find it hard when people say, "What's your music like?" and I say honest, but they're like, "Yeah, but everyone says their stuff's real. Everyone says their stuff's real." But like I said, it's about kind of the practice of songwriting, because first and foremost we're songwriters and composers more than artists, I'd say, and so I think that a lot of the stuff that we're trying to do is just about being an honest person in your lyrics and in your composition, whereas musical practice tells you to champion yourself as a songwriter, as a rapper, anything like to do with that. It's about championing yourself, always making yourself look like the hero. And April and the Aprilites isn't about always becoming like the hero in the end. It's about your journey to becoming the hero, but it's not necessarily about being the hero at that time.
That is dope. I hope you are the heroes in the end of this story, man.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Or at least interesting villains.
Yeah.
Can you describe what your sound? Can you do it like in a sentence?
In a sentence.
I've been asking this question with all my magazine interviews at the moment. Like,
I think that's very difficult.
It's very.
Yeah.
It's
it
quite
doesn't have to be in a sentence
because like she said, some of the stuff we've got goes into country and western.
Cool.
As you heard, Love Reassurance is more on a kind of reggae type of style.
Yeah, definitely.
Toxicity is more kind of ambient sounding. So it's really, it's quite an eclectic sound that we have.
I'd call it ambient indie, as in like
It's got
independent, no attachments. That's
like without because apart from toxicity.
You're struggling now.
Toxicity.
Go.
Apart from toxicity, you got like an atmospheric sound as well in the production. I don't know if that's
Right.
even on the reggae sounding one. It's like a certain sound. Ambient is what you was calling it, but I kind of see that.
Yeah.
Will the album kind of have that feeling, or will it be something?
It will have, it more or less have that type of feeling to it. Yeah. But I mean, it's not locked down. You know, we're experimenting, so we keep, you know, things are going to evolve and change.
Yeah, because the other two songs don't sound nothing like
Toxicity.
Yes. Exactly.
You said it perfect earlier on, like for the first time. I was struggling at the beginning of the show.
Every time I'm about to say it, I feel. Nah, you're not gonna be able to say it.
I need to make like a toxicity tongue twister challenge or something like that.
Definitely. Before we wrap it up, so one more time, where are they going to be able to get this project? When is it coming out?
Right now, if you follow me at April and the Aprilites on Instagram or at Antonio B Official on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter, April Showering. What's your Twitter, babe, again?
Antonio B Official, I think it is.
Yeah. Follow him through the Instagram if you're confused. Find us. Right now, just stay locked, stay tuned, because what we want to do is bring people on a journey as well. We're not trying to just put everything out there in your face. We're trying to just bring people on a journey of our growth and stuff like that, so that people can feel like they're part of the journey with us, and that's where we're going with it all.
Brilliant. I'm following the journey.
But keep tuned out. In about release in about 4 weeks. Then it will be available on all the platforms. iTunes.
We're just trying to sort out some minor legalities.
Yeah, well, we'll be playing it here and announcing it and letting people know.
Thank you.
We're gonna get into something live.
Yeah, we're gonna give it a go. Hey.
Should we go straight into it, or should we have a break and play something else first?
I would like some water. So
yeah. We can arrange that.
Antonio's a pagan and don't let us keep water in here because I'm clumsy. Yeah.
That Antonio.
That Antonio.
There's two Antonios in the studio.
Nah, not the Antonio who's a guest. The one that ran things in here, and also he's letting the other Antonio smoke, and he don't let man them smoke. Whatever. I'm playing.
This is innocent. This is vaping, man.
Keep it pyro.
Big Ben, come back to the mic though, because we're gonna. What we got left? We got like 5 minutes left. Usually at this time we try and end the interview a bit earlier, and then we can do like a kind of summary of what we've learned from the day.
That's like Jerry Springer, like
But you're still here. You're still here, but so I suppose you can be a part of it as well.
Thank you.
So
I don't know what you lot was talking about. I was congratulating them these lot on the song.
No, for the debate. We didn't have we didn't have a question. We didn't have a question, so we don't have a. It's not like we're not answering anything.
So just like toxic masculinity.
We didn't even mention that term, and I was thinking that, and then we ran out of time. But yeah,
toxic relationships,
toxic masculinity is an issue. Toxic relationships. I think April's summary at the end was very key to me about us making sure that we're ready. I can't remember exactly how you worded it.
Yeah.
But I think just making sure we're ready. If you're ready to be in a relationship, you're happy with yourself, love yourself, then you're not gonna be. You're less likely to be toxic to a person you're with.
Yeah.
And also, you're gonna be ready. You're gonna be more prepared.
You're going to be able to see the signs
not to handle it from someone else if you're on the receiving end.
Exactly. Is it okay if I add to that as well?
Please do.
Like if any of our listeners are in a situation where they're suffering from like domestic violence, or there's a situation where you have children involved, like whatever we said, scrap all of we said, do what you have to do to safeguard yourself and safeguard your children.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, that is the most important thing, because we're talking about toxicity, we're not talking about violence. So I just wanted to reach out to anyone that's in that situation. Like
you just opened like a whole kind of worms that I wanted to mention as well. It's impossible to touch these subjects. Like how do you deal with it?
Thank God you said that, you know. Thank God you just said that, because otherwise we would have sounded like pagans. We've been talking about this for like an hour. We ain't even giving that advice to no one. Make sure that you look after yourself and you're safe. We're just discussing it like it's anything.
That's very true. It's very true.
You're 100%
no, but I mean,
right.
just you touching on children being involved as well, it made me think that is a whole another area to explore, how to deal with that when you go through a situation, a toxic relationship, and there is a child involved, and you cut off.
Yeah.
Like,
because
how do you deal with moving forward from there?
Exactly, because children shape their identity on their environment. Children shape their identity on what other people perceive them to be, or their environment, and so that's really important what you just said, Nova. Like, you know, children involved, like this is deeper than the levels of this radio show right now. You need to safeguard yourself and safeguard your children. That's the most important thing.
Very important.
Thank you very much for coming again. It's PyroRadio.com. We're here every Friday 9 to 11 p.m.
Next week we'll be discussing what is a hoe.
Yeah, that is the topic.
We're actually calling it the whole show.
That is actually the question.
We're not really calling it the whole show. We're not really calling it that. We're calling it what is a.
I'm going to look into that.
Yeah. Well, I wrote it on Facebook. I wrote a question, what is a hoe, and a question on my Facebook, and people took what they wanted from this question in many different ways, and I like asking questions that are designed to do that to them.
Same like the toxic relationship.
And then an artist called Nisa Marie came to me with her song and was explaining to me what it was about, and I was like, what she was describing was what I was kind of exploring in this thread. So I tagged her, I said, look at this, and we started talking, and I was like, cool, let's do the show, and let's keep that same topic. So that's going to be interesting next week, Friday 9 to 11 p.m. We're going to play one more record before we're out of here. by an artist called Lexia Lopez called Black Sheep. You can check her out online, and this is on SoundCloud and all them kind of things there. Yeah, she's cool. She's got like a hip hop EP coming out, and this is the first thing she's released from her hip hop EP. So make sure you look out for it. We're gonna have to get her up here when that comes out.
Big up everyone in a toxic relationship right now. Yeah. No one really cares about you, but big you up.
People do care. What are you talking about, man?
Okay. Apart from like the family members that you've locked off for your partner, I'm joking.
No, big up. No, for real though. Everyone that's going through it. Do you know, we had so many topics, so many comments that we didn't get to read out. That's why last time we had to do a show, two shows in a row. We can't continue this next week because we've got another show. And also, but we're gonna have to come back. It is, isn't it? But sometimes you got to go through depressing things.
A lot of people are way strong
to get somewhere.
A lot of people have got through these problems. So if you're going through them, there's a lot of people that's got through them. So you're not alone out there.
And one more thing I can't believe I haven't said is I'm a very strong advocate of therapy.
Absolutely,
I can't believe I haven't said that this whole time. And someone actually in a comment sent a link to a course they'd gone on that said that it really helped them in their life. I can't believe I haven't read that out as well. I'm going to read it out next week. We'll be back. It's Flip Life Radio.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming down.
Keep it pyro.